All right. And after a short delay, we are live. There might be a bit of an echo. Let me try to fix this. Um, can't find my earbuds that I normally use when I go live. So if the sound is weird, let me know because I really won't hear anything. Anyway, what's up, Cowboys fans? So, a lot of people are just barely getting over the Cowboys loss to the Ravens that happened on Sunday. And there's another game around the corner against the New York Giants on Thursday. Now, in a week when the Cowboys definitely cannot afford to have conditions working against them, for the first time ever, they're going on the road on a short week. So basically 3 days rest or less going on the road is something that they apparently have never done, which I wasn't aware of until today. So that's one of the factors working against them. Now, the Cowboys also, because of the way they've lost the past couple of games, pretty much have a duplicable blueprint that's out. Like pretty much any team they'll face knows, hey, if we run the ball on them, there's a good chance that we might have some unexpected success. So those two factors combined are already creating a situation that's less than ideal for the Dallas Cowboys going into this Thursday night game against the Giants. Um, so the Cowboys, though, are expected to win. A lot of people are predicting them as the winners of the game, but most of the predictions, when you get into the numbers, are looking at a win of somewhere between a field goal and a touchdown. So, not a huge win, definitely not a blowout. And let's be real, there are a lot of people who think that the Cowboys could very well lose this game. So, what we're dealing with here with the Giants is another team that needs a win and that also has a running quarterback. And on top of that, there's the conditions I mentioned earlier where they're going on the road on a short week and it may possibly be raining. So, we're going to dive into some of the insights that'll tell us a little bit more about what to expect with this game as soon as I play this clip. This is a clip from Mike McCarthy where he actually, did a much better job of answering questions today than he did yesterday, which is why we get to talk about football instead of feelings. So we're going to get into this clip, talk about it, and then we'll listen to a little bit more of the sound from Mike McCarthy today.
Nick Harris, Four Star Telegram. What's the challenge of this Giants defensive front? Lawrence, Burns, Thibodeau. What do those guys bring?
Well, I think it's definitely very diverse. They got two excellent edge pieces in the way they're playing them. They're a little bit unpredictable as far as what they're doing on the edges, and Lawrence is just a dominant player inside. So I was really impressed, particularly the Cleveland game. They really turned up the pressure in that game, and obviously the sack numbers and the hits speak for themselves.
All right. So that was a clip. And once again, please let me know if y'all can't hear me. I don't have my headphones in. So but that was a clip from Mike McCarthy's press conference that happened today. And he was asked about three Giants defensive players. So when the question was asked, they referenced Lawrence, Burns, and Thibodeau. That would be Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau. So now the information that we're about to go over, some of it is stuff I took notes on. And then at some point, I'm just gonna start reading from Next Gen Stats. So you'll see me switch back and forth. Anyway, so let's start with Dexter Lawrence. Clement says he can't hear me. Hold on. Testing. Testing. Can you hear me now? Okay. Chris says he can hear me. Clement can't hear me. So if there's anybody else who wants to chime in and vote, just hop in the comments. All right. Chris says I'm good, so we're gonna go with I'm good. All right. So anyway, getting back to what I was saying. So Dexter Lawrence, we're gonna start with him because that was just the first name mentioned. Dexter Lawrence, out of the three guys mentioned, is probably the one making the most impact right now. So against the Browns, which is the game that Mike McCarthy said, sorry, I'm looking at two different cameras. Against the Browns, which Mike McCarthy said was the game that impressed him. He had 2 sacks and 4 hits on the quarterback. And so far, no, during that game, he also had 3 tackles. Now, so far on the season, he only has 1 pressure. So if you look at that on paper, you might think like, okay, what is the big deal about this guy? Why is everyone talking about his dominance? But here's the thing about that 1 pressure that's happened. He has been double teamed a lot. And so, what a lot of people are saying about Dexter Lawrence in particular is that the fact that he's being double teamed so much is what's opening up opportunities for other defensive players to make plays. So, when he's lined up at zero technique, he's double teamed 56% of the time. And that's actually up from last year. Apparently, last year he was double teamed 44% of the time. But so far this season, in the first 3 weeks, Dexter Lawrence has been double teamed 56% of the time. So what that led to, at least against the Browns, was Deshaun Watson was hit 17 times and sacked 8 times. And so although those numbers don't show up on Dexter Lawrence's stats, people are attributing that to the fact that he demands so much attention that you're going to have to let somebody else go. So I definitely think that's something that the Cowboys should watch out for, considering the struggles that we've seen with the offensive line and just them being cohesive and being able to protect Dak Prescott adequately, honestly. Something else to consider, the Browns only rushed for 69 yards and had a total of 217 yards of offense. Now, I know y'all might be thinking like, hey, it's the Browns, but for any professional NFL team, those numbers are pretty low. And on top of all this, Lawrence is kind of known for taunting his opponents when they do try to block him one-on-one and fail. So that should make for a very fun game, if any, for whoever ends up going up against him. Now, Burns, that would be Brian Burns. Burns is not as impactful as Dexter Lawrence so far this season. It looks like he's generated 15 pressures on 84 pass rushers. So that's a rate of 17.9%, which is pretty good. So he's still making an impact, just not the type of impact where where other teams are putting 2 guys on him. Now, one interesting piece of information about him is that in 2023, he had multiple pressures against 8 different offensive linemen. And so far this season, that number is up to 5. So he doesn't just beat a guy once, or like he'll beat him twice, he'll beat him 3 times. He seems to really be making an impact in terms of getting pressures, and in some cases getting to the quarterback. Although last season, Thibodeau, that last name that we heard, which is Kayvon Thibodeau, last season, the 2 of them were kind of known for being a duo. But this season, Kayvon Thibodeau has been kind of quiet, actually. So it seems like he's the one out of the 3 who's still trying to get going. Now, the question included him because Kayvon Thibodeau is known for having an impact on the defensive side of the ball for the Giants. But so far this season, he's at 0.5 sacks and 1.3 tackles. Now, Kayvon Thibodeau was asked about this, and what he said was that those numbers, his low numbers compared to last season, are actually due to lots of chipping and 2-man routes. So hopefully that's something the Cowboys took note of, and we'll see that from the Cowboys in order to keep him quiet for the beginning part of this season as well. But yeah, it sounds like despite what people are saying about the Giants and the presentation that this might be a quote unquote easier game for the Cowboys, they do have some people that the Cowboys are going to want to watch out for. And we're getting some comments already, so let me read those before we go to the rest of what Mike McCarthy had to say. Let's see. Clement says, what the Cowboys have to prove on Thursday night against the Giants is details, accountability, and execution on offense and defense. They need to establish some sort of run game, especially against, I think these are coming in out of order. Especially against Dexter Lawrence, and then make sure to pass protect against both Brian Burns and Kelvin Thibodeau. And the receivers have to beat tight man coverage by the Giants secondary. So I agree on all of that. I think my thing right now, Clement, is that I just don't feel comfortable predicting anything. I already do not like making predictions. I simply don't. And the fact that even without predicting a score, just me thinking that the Cowboys were going to be able to do certain things against past opponents, and even being wrong in that aspect, just that is making me nervous about saying what they should do or could do. So yes, I do think this is a game where what they're going to want to do is kind of get a rhythm. One of the things that if you want to kind of get past the emotional and mental aspects of the messages about professionalism that were in the headlines this week and focus on the idea that they need to find a rhythm. The reason why they need to do the work, pay attention to detail, get on their P's and Q's, so on and so forth, all the things that we heard. The reason why they need to do all those things and those things are being called out is because it feels like there's just so much dissonance on the field. It feels like on both sides of the ball, they're having trouble getting things going. And so, yes, in a short week, we're not going to see them install something new. And so we're pretty much going to see them try to improve upon what they've already worked on. But even that would be a win for them. If they can just get a rhythm going in any aspect. And like, yes, I would love to see them establish the run. Also, I just at this point, I don't necessarily have faith in them to do it. But I do agree on all those points. Those are things that they need to do. So the reason why I asked that question in the title was because there have been some people who said, hey, if the Cowboys win this game, it doesn't actually mean anything. And to an extent, I do agree, to an extent. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of questions that fans have about the Dallas Cowboys right now. And I don't think that this game will be able to answer all those questions, even if they do win. So does it mean anything? Of course it does. Your record is what determines your standing. Your record has an impact on where you end up in the playoffs and if you make the playoffs at all. So every win does mean something. But will it be something that I'm celebrating? Like, yes, the Cowboys won. I'll be happy that they won. But it'll be more of the type of happiness that comes from a sense of relief as opposed to like a celebratory happiness where I'm like, yo, that was dope. They would have to do something astonishing for me to actually be like, okay, we learned something new about the Dallas Cowboys. So I guess that's a better way to put it. I don't expect to learn anything new about them. I just want to see if they can improve upon even just a few of the things they've been struggling with so far this season. So on that note, let me go ahead and pull up the full sound from Mike McCarthy today. We're not going to listen to the whole thing, but we are going to start from the beginning. And it was a longer press conference than I expected. So, shout out to him for giving some good answers to the press today. And let me see if this is already at the beginning. And I'm sorry, y'all. My voice is a little bit weaker than I'd like it to be, but here we are. I can't tell you how close this stream was to not happening at all. Hold on, let me turn this down because I'm starting to hear the echo. All right, fix that. I think I fixed this. We're sharing the screen. Let's listen.
Oh yeah, hey,
David Moore, Dallas Morning News. You're talking last week, one of your points of emphasis was kind of cleaning up the route running and working on that. And you talked again about getting off this merry-go-round of 9, 10, 11 play drives and not scoring. Is that still a point of emphasis this week, cleaning up the route running instead of going into this game with New York?
Well, I mean, we're emphasizing it, but it's been more classroom and video, and just because of the nature of playing the Thursday game. So we've had our opportunity to do the self-scout, preliminary component of the yesterday's meeting, but today's really, we're kind of on a Thursday type schedule, just to make sure that we have everything situational in. So we'll do some individual route running after the work today, just to make sure we get the tempo and the timing down on the any type of wrinkle that we're going to use Thursday night.
Okay, so for clarification, today's practice was a walkthrough. They're about to travel tomorrow, so that was to be expected. And so essentially what he's saying there is that, so the question was about some of the statements that he's made in the past about having essentially these series with lots of plays, but not being able to make a lot of progress on those plays. And from my perspective, that was a long way of him saying, we're going to work on it, but don't expect to see anything necessarily new. And like I said, that's to be expected. Short week. They're about to travel. So I mean, I'm not really mad at that answer. In a perfect world, would they be able to do more? Yes. But he's telling the truth here, so I'm not mad at it. And let me fast forward to about, I think here is where they started talking about the running backs. So he's about to be asked about the running backs and the chemistry between the running backs and the offensive line. So I really liked this question because that's a question that if you've been, listening to some of the clips that I shared, and even I think we even talked about it in the live that happened yesterday. I've been asking the question of like, okay, is it actually the running backs who are at fault, or is there something about the chemistry between the running backs and the offensive line that's leading to the results that we're getting in the run game? So here he has an opportunity to chime in on his perspective on that.
Saad,
he's the athletic. Mike, in the running game for the running backs and offensive line, do you feel like there's more chemistry that needs to be developed there between new backs, a couple of new pieces on the offensive line, just in terms of what they're seeing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is not ideal for, when you're looking at this format for, particular statistics. And, just like anything, we've played 3 games. I don't know. We got 3 quarters of 2-minute offense. I mean, so there's different things that factor in that. The number one focal point for me is our run game needs more attempts. We need to get more attempts, and we need to get in and out of concepts. And I think that in itself will help us.
Joe Hoy, also
So I thought it was interesting that he mentioned that they need to get more attempts. So the need for more attempts is something that I actually talked about yesterday when I was referring to the statistics that showed that Dak Prescott actually has a far better win-loss record whenever the running backs have at least, what was it? Hold on, let me see if I can remember. I'm trying to memorize these numbers. At least 30 carries and at least 100 yards in a game. And in the game against the Ravens, they only had 16 carries, and I think it was like 51 yards or something like that. So far below what we'd want to see ideally for the type of quarterback that Dak Prescott is, right? And so one of the questions that I posed was like, okay, if we know that this is what Dak Prescott needs to be successful, and we have to know it because if I have access to the information, then they certainly have access to that information plus some, right? So I was kind of like, if we know that that's what Dak needs, then why are we seeing so few attempts? So putting together some of the answers that we've heard, especially from Mike McCarthy, it sounds like the reasoning was, well, they got behind. And so then they couldn't use the run game as much to try to catch up. But I don't know. And maybe this is me being a little bit short-sighted. It kind of felt like what they were doing wasn't working anyway. So if you know that more run attempts usually leads to more success, why not at least try it? But obviously that's one of those things that's a little bit more, it's a little bit easier said than done. What I'm trying to do right now is actually pull up some statistics on our run game because I actually meant to look this up ahead of time, but I was curious about how many run attempts we've had total. And I think that might be a little bit harder to find than I thought it was because my laptop is just being, okay, here we go. So rushing leaders, we've got Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott at the top of the list. Rico Dowdle looks like so far is averaging 3.8 yards per carry, and Ezekiel Elliott is averaging 3.3. So Rico so far on the season has 23 attempts, and Ezekiel Elliott is at 19. So that combines for a total of 42 attempts on the season between those two running backs. So nowhere near the number of attempts that we would want to see at this point in the season in order to get the results that we typically see from a successful Dallas Cowboys offense when Dak Prescott is at the helm. So I do agree with him. I'm glad he's acknowledging that, but this is definitely something that they're going to want to really be intentional about. Like, I don't want him to just say this and then just kind of move on and then come up with some other reason why it didn't happen. This is clearly something that they need to be intentional about practically doubling per game. And not only that, but I really feel like the whole, I'm repeating what I said yesterday, I feel like the whole running back by committee situation is simply not helping. So like I said, I know on a short week they're not going to install anything new. However, I really do hope that somehow we're able to see a difference in the run game. But yeah, Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott are the only two running backs in double digits right now. Behind them, you've got Deuce Vaughn with 7 attempts. You've got Dak with 5 attempts, and then you've got Kevontae and Brandon Cooks with 2 attempts each. And I think I said CeeDee Lamb already has 3. So yeah, definitely not doing the running backs any justice whatsoever. And before we get back into that sound, I do want to read some of y'all's comments on this. Clement says, what about running 11 or 13 panel? Do you mean personnel? Meaning a running back and 2 tight ends, or a running back, a tight end, and an extra lineman to block 7 defenders in the box, especially if the other team is dropping the safety in. Like I said earlier, at this point, I would be willing to, I'm open to anything. Now, concerning the running back and 2 tight ends, there is a statistic I'm going to share with you later about the tight end usage. So put a pin in this comment. Put a pin in this, and we're going to come back to it. Let's see what else. Willie says to Clement, Cowboys need to find a running game immediately. Facts. And they need to stop the run. Also facts. As a man, someone needs to step up and stop all this talking and just do it. I'm gonna let you have that last one. I'm not arguing with you today, Willie. Okay, let's keep going. Actually, I want to fast forward to about 10 minutes in. Mike McCarthy starts talking about some of the issues with missed tackles, which is that's an issue that hasn't gotten nearly as much attention as I thought it would so far. Definitely a problem with this defense. So we're gonna go to where he talks about that and hear what he had to say. Hold on, let me mute myself. I don't know if y'all were getting an echo or not, but with me not having the headphones, y'all might be. So
one of the issues for the defense this year has been some of the missed tackles, 241 yards. Devin Singletary particularly good at forcing some of those missed tackles. Is it realistic to think that you guys can clean some of that up on a short week? And when you look at the tape, is it effort? Is it technique? What's standing out to you? What's been consistent there?
Well, I think like anything in fundamentals, it's like a bank account, and that's why training camp is so important. The padded work is so important because that's where you're able to really work the footwork, to get into the, not maybe live action, but as live as possible, as close to the fire as possible. So there's an investment that's made each and every day. We have a first period that we do after stretch every time we practice is team fundamentals. So it's in line with your question. So I'm definitely counting on our bank account.
okay, I'm not a fan of the bank account analogy. But maybe that's what he came up with on the fly. It's not bad. I'm just like, that was just a weird direction for him to go in. Now, everything else that he said about the missed tackles, I found valuable. So one, he mentioned that every day after they do their stretches, they go into fundamentals. And it sounds like what he was trying to explain was the fact that with it being that the NFL literally caps the number of padded practices that a team can have. And I believe, and if anybody has heard anything different, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But last time I checked, a team is only allowed to have 14 padded practices during the course of a season. And when you think about that in the context of the fact that they have 17 games over the course of this season, it does kind of point to the idea that they don't have as much opportunity to practice things like tackling well as you would hope for, because of course they're not going to tackle at full speed if they're not padded. So he's essentially saying they're doing what they can with the opportunities that they have within the parameters that they're allowed to with the NFL. And I think what he was trying to explain with the bank account analogy was that there's a certain amount of investment they can make into tackling. So even though they can't always practice, all out tackling and work on that, they are working on things like fundamentals. According to him, he thinks footwork is important in tackling. While footwork is important, I do think there are other components that are also important that hopefully he's paying attention to. He decided to focus on footwork and fundamentals. Okay, cool. but yeah, there's a lot more that goes into tackling, but they're essentially doing what they can. Like I said, they don't have a lot of padded practices, so they're doing what they can. But there's another statistic that I'm going to share. Actually, let me go ahead and get into that, and go into some of the other statistics that are related to what he's saying. Let's see. All right. So one of the ways, let me go ahead and get him off the screen. We're going to put me up. One of the ways that tackling might come into play is when it comes to Daniel Jones himself. Now, I mentioned that Daniel Jones is a running quarterback. We all know this. Now, he's not Lamar Jackson, of course, but he is a threat when it comes to him just taking the ball on his own and doing what he can do with his feet. So Daniel Jones apparently has the 5th most designed quarterback rushes out of all the QBs in the league right now. And he also has the 4th most yards from those QB rushes. So that sounds like something that, if we think about the Cowboys at their best, it sounds like something that they would easily be able to handle. But what we're dealing with this season is the fact that the Cowboys have allowed 83 yards from designed quarterback rushes, which is the most in the league. So unfortunately, it sounds like Daniel Jones could very well be a problem, especially if you add that to the fact that, these are the numbers, but the numbers are a reflection of what we've seen in the sense that they're having trouble tackling in a lot of situations. Also, in general, the Cowboys have allowed the most rushing yards and the most rushing yards over the expected yards when using a stacked box. So basically, they stack the box, which would suggest that they're prepared for a run. But for whatever reason, they're allowing more yards than anybody and also allowing more yards than even the people who are analyzing the numbers expected them to allow. So once again, when it comes to the Giants and the expectation that the Cowboys are going to win, I think that's why we see that tiny score margin, because there are a lot of people who still are saying, hey, the Dallas Cowboys are a better team than the New York Giants. But whatever's going on this season that's causing the Cowboys to struggle and leading to a lot of the numbers that we're seeing, some of those things could come into play against the Giants. There's definitely an opportunity for the Giants to take advantage of some of the weaknesses that the Cowboys have put on display over the past couple of weeks. More comments, yay. Okay, why are we talking about gap discipline? Having gap discipline is key along with reading his keys. Who are we talking about? I hate when y'all make me scroll so much. Let's see. Chris says, I feel like we have been saying this for years. Run the ball and stop the run. We have. We were all begging for a DT and RB via draft or free agency. Facts. I'm just defeated emotionally at this point. Oh, don't be like that. And then Clement said, Jerry created this culture, and his comments yesterday was ridiculous and idiotic. Oh, don't get me started on that. I'm so ready to move on from all that. And then that's when Clement says, having gap discipline is key, along with reading his keys, take the right angles and attack the outside shoulder and get the player to the ground. Who are you talking about? Did I miss a message? Oh, their keys, not his keys. Okay, so you're talking about several people, not one. Willie says, Daniel Jones don't scare me at all, not even a little bit. You know what, Willie? Normally, Daniel Jones would not scare me either. However, just when I think about the question that was just asked about the missed tackles, right? And then I'm like trying to put that into context. And you guys, like, I would have loved to have gotten these numbers and more insight from film as opposed to just like reading some stuff from Next Gen Stats. But I haven't had time. I'm sorry. Like, when I say that I would love to start making money doing this, that's a big part of the reason why. Like, if this were to become like my full-time thing, I would probably still be doing late night lives like this, but I would come to y'all at like 11 o'clock, like, y'all, I watched 8 hours of film today. Let me tell y'all something, So yeah, just looking at the numbers, looking at the fact that the Cowboys are allowing, what was it? The most yards from QB rushes in the entire league. And Daniel Jones has the 4th most yards from QB rushes. It just sounds like a setup to where even though we shouldn't be afraid of Daniel Jones, it sounds like somewhere in there are weaknesses that he's going to be able to exploit. So I hope that doesn't turn out to be the case. But seeing what I've seen so far this season, I can't deny the very realistic possibility that could be the case. Does that make sense? You getting what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense. Like, I hope I'm not up here sounding crazy. I hope somebody else can relate to what I'm saying. Clement says, when it comes to Daniel Jones in the running game, if the defensive ends do their job, how big of an if is that, Clement, though? Like, but if the defensive ends do their job, meaning turn Daniel Jones into the middle of the defense, it will allow the linebackers to make the tackle. That just feels like a big if right now. The reason why I'm pausing is because I'm trying to think about if the issue is them doing their job or if it's just confusion and misalignment. I don't know. For whatever reason, they've been off. Okay. So we can assign it to whatever we want to assign it to. There are a lot more questions that need to be asked and a lot more that needs to be seen in that department. But I say that to say, you say if the defensive ends do their job, as though that's just something that's been happening on a regular basis. For whatever reason, the defensive line has been struggling. They haven't been in sync. They haven't been on point. We've seen misalignment. We've seen them chasing gaps. We've just seen them have issues. And it's trickling down and affecting the linebackers and everybody behind them. So, yeah, I agree with you. If they do their job, then we don't have anything to worry about. But we do have to worry about them doing their job right now. And when it comes to what does this game mean, what questions can the Cowboys answer in this game? That's one of them. On a short week, can they get it together? Can they get it back on track? If they can, then that lets us know then, okay, now that they have this mini bye week, we can look forward to them making even more progress. But if they can't, it's definitely time to worry. Definitely time to worry. Joel Carter says, do you think by Michael losing so much weight, it's affecting his play a bit? No, I don't. He didn't lose so much weight that I think it's a concern. I think, hold on. I told y'all, I don't know what's happening. I really just think allergies. I've been dealing with the weirdest allergies since I moved here. But, yeah, I think sometimes we are looking for a little bit more of an impact from things like that just because we're looking for answers. But no, I haven't heard or seen anything that suggests that his weight loss is the reason why he's having an issue. Now, is his play being affected by something? Probably. And that's another statistic that we're going to get to. Once we get through this Mike McCarthy sound, I have a whole list of things from Next Gen Stats that we're going to talk about. But yes, you are right in saying that his play has been affected. You're not making that up. You're not imagining that. But I just don't think that it's because of his weight. Willie says if they lose to the Giants, it won't be pretty for nobody. Willie is so pessimistic. Oh my God. Chris said, moved here from where? Chris, I lived in Austin for several years, and I just moved to Frisco this summer. And I think I might be allergic to Frisco, Texas. It's wonderful. All right, let's get back into this Mike McCarthy sound. Do we need to fast forward at all? I think there's just like one or two more clips that I wanted to talk about. I think literally just one. So where are we? Did we go to... All right, we'll just go from here.
Garrett Podell, CBS Sports. Mike, you've coached a lot of young, exciting receivers. What stands out about Malik Neighbors you'll see on Thursday?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I think anytime you see a young man come in the league and just, just the way they're his targets, and his ability to go get the football. Obviously, I mean, he has the size and the speed in the body control. But I do think he's a very exciting player when the ball's in the air. So that's what stood out to me.
Todd.
Mike Zeke only had 15 snaps last week. Is that just the way the game went, or is that
Totally,
just what he's?
Yeah, just product of the game. I mean, like I said, we were behind. We were talking about no huddle in 2 minutes in the middle of the third quarter. So I think the last two games, anything that we didn't do that didn't fit your playtime expectations on offense is really due to the kind of games we've been in.
Okay, so in terms of things that I wanted to get into from Mike McCarthy's sound, that's pretty much it. But it was a 15-minute press conference. So, go to the Dallas Cowboys YouTube channel and check that out. And also make sure you check out Girls Talk Boys Talk while you're at it. Support me and the homies. All right, so on that note, let's go ahead and get into some more of these insights because there is some interesting things here. And I'm just going to kind of scroll through because it kind of got to the point where I was just like, okay, I'm taking so many notes on everything. I might as well just read it. So essentially what I'm doing is reading the insights and statistics that I find most interesting and giving you the reasons why I find them interesting. And I think I want to start from the bottom and work my way up. So let's see. The Giants have blitzed on 43% of dropbacks this season, which is the second highest in the NFL, and blitzed at their highest rate of the season in week 3, which is 57%. Now, normally, this is something that would excite me because historically, Dak Prescott does really well against the blitz, right? But once again, we're seeing some anomalies this season. So I'm just not confident that I can trust Dak Prescott against the blitz in the same way that we've been able to trust him in the past. Now, one thing I will admit as I'm saying that is that while I have looked a lot at the running back issues and how the O-line is affecting those, I haven't really done the same thing for Dak Prescott. So it's very possible that the O-line issues are affecting every part of the offense. But Next Gen Stats goes on to say, Dak Prescott has completed just 13 of 29 passes, which is 44.8% for 229 yards and 3 touchdowns against the blitz this season. His 44.8% completion rate on such passes is the 5th lowest in the NFL. Y'all, for Dak Prescott, that is crazy. For him to be the 5th worst quarterback against the blitz is bananas. It's like we're in the Twilight Zone. It's like Bizarro World Cowboys. This is not the offense that we know and love. So once again, it's things like this that make me a little bit cautious. Like before the Ravens game, had you asked me how the next few games are going to go, I'd have been like, against the Ravens, it's a toss-up. They're a good team that struggled out the gate. We might win, we might lose. Giants, I definitely would have predicted it to be a win. But with just some of the issues that we've seen, like statistics like this, them not doing, Dak Prescott not doing well against the blitz, the defense having such a hard time with tackling, having such a hard time with running quarterbacks, like things like that do worry me. All right, so in addition to that, Daniel Jones tied his second quickest average time to throw in his career in week 3 against the Browns at 2.41 seconds. Jones was more efficient when holding on to the ball for more than 2.5 seconds, though. However, completing 9 of 13 passes for 120 yards and a touchdown. So it sounds like Daniel Jones is releasing the ball quicker than he normally does, quicker than we usually see him do like in seasons past. But couple that with this statistic right here. Micah Parsons, is it that one? Yeah. Parsons has averaged a 3.24 second time to pressure in 2024. So think about that. Daniel Jones is getting rid of the ball in 2.41 seconds. Micah Parsons is averaging 3.24 seconds in time to pressure. And that is over a second slower than his 2023 average time to pressure. So last year, his average time to pressure was 2.31 seconds, which would still be a short enough time to pressure Daniel Jones and his almost record timing of getting rid of the ball in 2.41 seconds. But for whatever reason, this year, which is why I said earlier that comment about what's affecting his game, you're definitely right in thinking something is affecting his game. I just don't think it's his weight. But this year, he's over a second slower. And I would love to figure out why that is. I haven't heard anybody ask him that yet. If I get a chance, I might ask him myself. I thought I would today, but I didn't. But if I get a chance, I might throw that at him, depending on what we see during this game and whatever happens between now and the next time I'm in a position to do that. But yeah, over a second slower, that's pretty major. And there are definitely going to be some people who want to point to the scheme like, oh, it's a new scheme. He's having to get used to it. The adjustment is causing him to have to delay a little bit. Very possible. But in terms of actual facts, I don't know. But that is one of the things that I see as an issue. So now we're compounding several facts. This season, Daniel Jones is one of the best quarterbacks in the top 5 when it comes to getting yards on QB rushes. The Dallas Cowboys, however, are one of the worst defenses when it comes to defending against QB rushes, and they're having trouble tackling. And Daniel Jones, even when he doesn't rush, is getting rid of the ball in a very quick time. And Micah Parsons, for whatever reason, is taking a way slower time to pressure a quarterback than he normally does. All those things together, I believe, are cause for concern. So, yes, shout out to the people who are like, there's no reason to be scared of Daniel Jones. There's no reason to be scared of the New York Giants. I truly hope you're correct. But when I start looking at these things, I'm just like, it's a recipe for a disaster. It's a recipe for just something else that another team can come through and unexpectedly take advantage of. Let's see if there's anything else interesting here about Micah Parsons. They say Parsons led the NFL in total pressures in 2023 with 99 and in 2022 with 88. Parsons has a line from both edges and will match up against the Giants offense that has allowed a 37.3% pressure rate this season, which is 24th in the league. So that's something that might work to our advantage. With right tackle Jermaine Illuminor, I hope I'm saying his name right, Illuminor, allowing a team-high 13 pressures on 119 total pass blocking snaps, which is 10.9%. And as far as his pressure rate this season, Micah Parsons has generated 16 pressures on 80 pass rushes this season, which is 20%, with 4 pressures coming in under 2.5 seconds. So although his average is a little bit long, he is able to get those quick pressures in sometimes. So all hope is not lost. It's just when we look at the averages, things look a little bleak. So let's see. Willie says, Jazz, the offensive line needs to protect Dak Thursday night. Absolutely. And please don't throw the ball 51 times. Oh my God. No, we do not need any of that. I would love to see them keep the pass attempts to under 40 and get the attempted carries to 30 or more. And I'll be happy. But no, we do not need this offense with 51 plus pass attempts. That is bananas. I'm tired of asking how we got there. I'm not asking that question anymore. But that is bananas. Clement says, we better win this game considering the next 3 opponents will be considerably better than the Giants. No disrespect. The last thing that I want is to put more things on film that other teams can use against us. Like, I absolutely do not want to see that happen. So even if just for that reason, I feel like they need to try to do well and try to force the Giants to start looking for solutions. You know what I'm saying? Because that's basically what happened with the Ravens. It's like they saw what the New Orleans Saints did, and it's like, I don't know how many of y'all have heard people talk about this, but the way the Ravens defense was covering the Dallas Cowboys receivers, that's not what they had been doing in the weeks prior. Their defense looked totally different for what they did against the Cowboys, but a lot of it had to do with what they saw work. It's a copycat league. It just is. And so the last thing we need is to show up in New York or New Jersey, technically, is where the stadium is. Last thing that they need is to show up against the Giants and put even more things on film for other teams to be like, oh yeah, we can do that. We can do that. Yada, yada, yada. Dak needs to have in the 30. I'm going to see if I can decipher this. I think there's a typo in here, Clement. Dak needs to have 30 pass attempts or less in this game. Dang, 30. Okay. I said 40. Meaning the offensive line needs to move people off the ball. I would love to see them do that. 8.8-inch Toxic Lamb. I'm so mad at that name. I don't know who you are, but I'm so mad at that name. BLS off Dallas. You might need to retype this one for me. Hold on. Are you saying if Dallas gets the ball? Okay, this is what I think you're saying. If Dallas gets the ball first, wouldn't you think run tempo, get them going and warmed up, hopefully score and keep them up from there? Yeah, that is something that could happen. I just don't know what to think with how we've seen them coming out the gate. But I mean, yeah, that is a great idea. Like, let's do that. I don't know what to consider realistic expectations for the team in that sense at this point. But that is one of the things that CD was asked about today, and he basically said he didn't want to give away the game plan. So do I think that would be a good way to get them going? Sure. What is that what they're going to do? I'm not even going to pretend like I have any clue. I hate making predictions, and my attempts to make predictions so far this season have bit me in the ass, as I'm sure it has for some of you. I know y'all can relate, but yeah, I'm not predicting any of that. I'm not predicting what they're going to start off with. Out of all the things I'm going to try to determine from these numbers, how they're going to start the game is absolutely not one of them. All right, let's keep going. So we got some information on, let's look at this information on Devin Singletary, who's one of the Giants running backs. It says Devin Singletary recorded 16 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown in week 3, with 72 of his yards coming after contact. Once again, concerning, because the Cowboys have had an issue with, honestly, the Cowboys have had an issue with yards before contact and also yards after contact. I guess they've just had an issue with just people getting yards. So if this guy is already, just coming in with what was it, 72 of his yards coming after contact, then yeah, this is a guy who could pose a problem for the Cowboys defense. It goes on to say Singletary was contacted behind the line of scrimmage on a career high 75% of carries. Okay, so that could work to the Cowboys' advantage. Singletary generated 4.5 yards after contact per carry, his most in a game since week 16 of 2022. All 65 of Singletary's yards on the ground came on rushes to the right. Interesting. Singletary gained 0 yards on 5 carries to the left. That is weird as hell. But also information that could work to the Cowboys' favor. That is weird. This is one of those times where I wish I watched a little more film, because I'm like, what the hell? 65 yards to the right and 0 to the left. Only 5 carries to the left, but still, that is crazy. 65 yards to the right on 11 carries. So like averaging over 5 yards per carry, almost 6 yards per carry to the right, but for some reason to the left, just cannot get anything going. Let's see. The next one, that's about Dak's tight window throws, which we talked about yesterday. Malik Neighbors, he's a popular name this week. Today, apparently, they asked him about Trayvon Diggs again, and he was like, I'm not talking about Trayvon Diggs anymore. Malik Neighbors has been targeted on a league high 37 of his 106 routes. That's a 34.9% target rate this season. So yeah, that's why everybody's predicting Trayvon Diggs is going to be on him, because like he seems to be the main target. Neighbors leads the NFL in team target share as well as team air yards. No other player holds over 35% of their team's target share or 50% of their team's air yards. So he has 57.6% of the team's air yards. The rookie has been especially effective against man coverage. Oh no. Leading the NFL with 19 targets, 12 receptions, 175 yards, and a 54.3% target rate. And that applies, or the receivers they considered in that were receivers that ran a minimum of 20 routes. Interesting. All right, we'll see how they do. The Cowboys have used 8 different offensive groupings this season, tied for the second most in the NFL. So this is actually something that I did like about the way the game ended against the Ravens, the fact that so many people got involved. Ultimately, they passed the ball a lot, but 12 different people caught receptions from Dak Prescott. And I feel like if they can build on that and figure out a way to get people more involved, but not when it's like panic time, I feel like that's something that would definitely benefit the whole offense. Because when you have defenses that are comfortable putting like 3 people on CeeDee Lamb and just trusting the odds that nobody else will be able to get it done, then that's causing a big issue. It's causing an issue for the quarterback. It causes an issue for other people on defense, and it's causing big issues for CeeDee Lamb. So I feel like if they can do a little bit more of spreading the ball around, obviously it'll just work out better for everybody involved. And while we're on the topic of CeeDee Lamb, I did see Clement make a comment earlier about CeeDee Lamb and him apologizing, taking accountability for his attitude during the game. So I'm going to pause from the stats real quick to talk about that, just to make sure I don't forget to talk about that. So here's what I was thinking about as I was listening to CD talk about what happened on the sideline on Sunday and his perspective on it in hindsight. So literally every season, CeeDee Lamb has improved drastically in some area. So his rookie year, he had a real problem with drop passes. He improved on that a lot. Then they criticized his route running. He improved on that a ton. Then after that, it was a question of, is he ready to be a wide receiver one? And he proved that he could be. Broke records, stepped up as a leader, took charge, ended up being pretty much a keystone of the Dallas Cowboys offense, right? So every time he faced criticism, he just came back better. This is why on multiple occasions, I have compared him to a Pokemon. It's not rude or out of disrespect. I just keep thinking about him evolving over and over and over again. And so I was thinking to myself, I was like, what if this is the year that he evolves mentally and emotionally? Like he already has done all the things that we just mentioned, and he lines up everywhere on the field. So what if this is the year where the evolution that he completes isn't about what he does on the field or what he does physically? What if this is the time for him to actually do something mentally and emotionally to evolve as a player? And it's an idea that I find fascinating because when it comes to elite athletes, a lot of elite athletes, they already have an established mindset before they become an elite athlete. So if we think about people like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, so on and so forth, we can think about things that they wrote. Like Michael Jordan wrote books. LeBron James has been very open about what he did to develop as an athlete. Kobe Bryant wanted people to know about his mindset so badly that he had a series about his mindset that he did with a puppet snake, with a mamba puppet. And if you haven't seen it, you should look it up because okay, so now that I'm monetized, I don't really know what the limit is on me cussing. So that's why I stopped myself. But it was freaking epic. It was epic. I loved it. But CeeDee Lamb, he doesn't like to be in front of the cameras and mics like that anyway. And just from what we have seen, it doesn't seem like his mindset led him to becoming the elite athlete that he is. It's almost like he just had it in him physically to be an elite athlete. And now he's having to develop the temperament to go with it. I don't want to say mindset because, like, obviously for what he's accomplished, he already has a very good work ethic. But it's the temperament. I think temperament is a better word to use here than mindset. Because when we think about the LeBron Jameses and the Kobe Bryants and the Michael Jordans of the world, and I don't know why I'm using a bunch of basketball players to compare to a football player, but just go with me on this. We don't think about them. We think about them being emotional, but not to where people would call them unprofessional or childish or some of the things that we've heard used to describe CeeDee Lamb, right? And so I guess that's why I'm wondering, or thinking that this might be the year for him to do that. And it's like, you also got to think, not only did he have to develop all the skills that he's developed in order to meet the expectations that he had, it's like people had those expectations before he even had time to adjust to what it was like being a wide receiver in the league. And doing all of that while also figuring out what it means to be a young adult male who's pretty much on the biggest stage that one can be on in their industry and doing this all in the public spotlight, I can see why there might be a little bit of work involved in developing the proper temperament and getting the mindset on track. And I feel like we don't hear enough stories like that. Like, all the stories we hear are about people who are just already the consummate professional. And that's what led them to being the athlete that they are. We don't really get to see a lot of the stories of people who have to like make that trajectory in both areas at the same time and in the spotlight. You know what I'm saying? So like that's just one of the things that like I think I find a little bit fascinating. I think that's why I'm always like interested in what CeeDee Lamb has to say and what he's going through and trying to be considerate of his perspective. It's not like I'm trying to make excuses for him. I'm like, no, I really am fascinated by this man's story. And I really do want to understand better what it's like to be in that position. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, maybe 10 cents on that. And if there's more to say on it, trust me, you'll know. But let's get back onto these stats. Clement says, congrats on 1.5K subscribers. Thank you. 2K subscribers incoming. You know what? I sure do hope so. That would be dope. All right, so we talked about the different offensive groupings for the Cowboys. Let's see. Next stat is Dexter Lawrence has generated just 1 pressure so far this season. Now we talked about that earlier, but I think a few people have joined the stream since I mentioned that particular statistic. So the statistic is Dexter Lawrence has generated just 1 pressure, which is a 6.3% pressure rate when aligned from a 0 technique this season, after leading the NFL with 24 pressures from such alignments in 2023. But here's the caveat to that for those who weren't here at the beginning of the stream. Lawrence has faced a higher double team rate this season when aligned as a 0 technique, so 56%. And so that is really where his impact on the Giants defense lies. It lies in the fact that in order to mitigate what he does himself, you have to double team him, which means somebody else is open to make a play. And that's why they've been able to be so impactful in terms of sacks and pressures and tackles. So there's that. Here's a corresponding stat for that. The Cowboys have recorded 32 missed tackles this season, which is 14.7%, resulting in the 3rd most yards lost to missed tackles at 241. Like I keep saying, I know y'all are saying this should easily be a win, but there are opportunities here that the Giants can take advantage of. Next Gen Stats goes on to say DeMarcus Lawrence has tied for the most missed tackles in 2024 at 9. And he's expected to be matched up against Devin Singletary, who forced 19 missed tackles in weeks 1 to 3, the 3rd most by any player this season. So yeah, there's a potential mismatch there. But I will say this, if there's anybody that I expect to step up and give a completely improved performance in what we've seen earlier in the season, it's D-Law. So it's like, I hate to see those kind of numbers from D-Law, but I'm just like, if it was anybody else, I would totally expect them to repeat that performance. But because it's D-Law, I do kind of expect him to show up and give us much different results this week. Giants rushers have been contacted behind the line of scrimmage on 46.7% of carries this season. That is something that could definitely work to the Cowboys' advantage. And that's the 5th highest rate in the NFL. The Giants rushers have generated more than 10 yards on just 9.3% of carries in 2024, which is the 8th lowest in the NFL. So, hey, maybe this will be the game that they stop the run. Let's see. Opposing offenses have called run plays against the Cowboys on a league high 51% of plays this season. Once again, bananas, 51%. But they're doing it because they can. That's 11.4% more often than expected. So the Cowboys have allowed a league high 54.4% success rate against designed runs and over 24.3 rushing EPA, which is more than triple the next closest team, which is the Rams at 6.1. So in a nutshell, something we already knew, the Cowboys are not doing well against the run, and teams are using that as a weakness against them. Okay, so now we have numbers to go with that. Awesome. The Giants' rush defense has performed better on the interior this season, allowing a 38.2% success rate on designed rushes between the tackles, at which makes them 11th in the league, compared to 43.3% on those outside the tackles. Now, here's why that bothers me. The Cowboys, for some god-awful reason, keep putting running backs in between the tackles. I don't know why they're not attacking the edges. Because even last season, that was an issue. Runs between the tackles has been an issue since 2023. Yet they come into 2024 and they're still doing it. And now they're going up against a team that's like, okay, please keep doing that because we're better there. And honestly, I think based on what we've seen, it looks like most teams are better there. Even the Cowboys seem to be, well, no. The Cowboys are definitely getting their edges attacked. Never mind. But yeah, so I hope that they break that habit for this game, especially considering the fact that it's on paper, it's documented that if you have the option, you don't want to go in between the tackles on the Giants. And you do have the option. So let's just not do that. All right, moving on. What else is interesting on this page? We talked about Brian Burns. We know how awesome Brandon Aubrey is. Wendell Robinson. It's a name you want to remember, but nothing that I'm considering that we've already been on here for over an hour. Nothing I'm going to get into right now. Okay, Daniel Jones. Jones has completed just 40 of 69 pass attempts for 340 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception against zone this season. So that's basically a 58% completion rate against zone. That 58% completion rate against zone is the second lowest in the NFL. So what does that tell us? Cowboys should be playing zone on Thursday. The Cowboys have played zone coverage on 73% of dropbacks this season, which is 14th in the NFL, up from 18% last season, which was 32nd in the NFL. They have allowed the lowest success rate in zone coverage in 2024. So when it comes to advantages for the Cowboys, that's probably the biggest one. It's the fact that they've been running zone a lot. It's one of the things that they seem to be successful at. And Daniel Jones seems to struggle with it somewhat. Now, here's what might happen. If Daniel Jones is not doing well in terms of completion rate against zone, and the Cowboys are running zone often and they seem to be good at it, then what the Giants might do is turn to the run game. Because like we just figured out, teams are running the ball on the Cowboys more than teams are running the ball on any other team. And stuff like this is why. It's like, okay, y'all actually do have the tools and a plan for the passing game. Daniel Jones isn't good against his own, but y'all aren't good at tackling. Y'all aren't good at mitigating yards accrued by QB rushes. And we have the 4th best QB rusher in the entire league. So why would we, the Giants, do something that we don't believe will work, especially if they actually try it and it's really not working? Like, they might try it. Like, it might be part of the game plan and they try it and they're like, you know what, this actually isn't working. Let's go to something that at least on paper should work. And at that point, the game could get ugly. And then you compound on top of that the fact that it's supposed to be raining anyway. That just gives them even more of a reason to be like, yo, we're going to abandon the passing game and just go for what seems to be working against the Cowboys. So while that little bit of information does excite me in the sense that I'm like, okay, dope. Daniel Jones struggles against something that the Cowboys are actually really good at. There's every reason to believe that they're going to do what other teams are doing and just run the ball way more than anybody expects them to, whether it's by the quarterback or by one of their running backs. So we'll see what happens there. But that's one prediction that I am willing to make. I hate making predictions, but what I do anticipate is that Daniel Jones is going to struggle when it comes to passing because of the Cowboys zone, because it's going to be raining, and they're going to start running the ball. Now, what happens from there is going to depend a lot on what the Cowboys are able to get done in terms of being a little bit more cohesive on the defensive line and stopping the run. So we shall see. Let's see. We already talked about the Cowboys allowing the most rushing yards. We don't need to go over that again. I'd love to forget it. Malik Neighbors has caught 8 of 11 targets on hitch routes for a league-high 77 yards. Most of Neighbors' production has been on in-breaking routes, hauling in 11 of 14 targets for 155 yards, which is the fourth most in the NFL. CeeDee Lamb has generated the most yards after the catch over expected in the NFL this season. So this is a statistic that they've been using a lot this year, which is not just the yards the person is getting, but what they're getting in comparison to what's expected. And so compared to what they expected him to do, CeeDee Lamb is like actually going above and beyond. They go on to say Lamb has averaged 9.1 yards after the catch per reception in 2024, the most in his career and the fourth most by any wide receiver in the NFL. Another piece of information about Malik Nabers is that he has been sent into motion on a team-high 31 snaps this season, including 17 in motion at the snap. Nabers has been targeted on 12 of 20 routes when used in pre-snap motion and converted that into 9 receptions for 134 receiving yards. So, interesting. And lastly, CeeDee Lamb has averaged 2 full yards less per route from the slot this season compared to 2023. Lamb has aligned in the slot at nearly the same rate compared to 2023, but has caught just 45.5% of his slot targets this season compared to 70.7% in 2023. So that's pretty much all the insights that I want to get into today. Clement says, Jazz, no one should believe that this will be an easy win versus Giants on Thursday. We are expecting this team to bounce back. That is it. Okay, that's fair. And maybe I'm dwelling on that because earlier in the season, before the season started, I thought it would be an easy win, or relatively easy, right? I don't think there's truly any such thing as a truly easy win in the NFL. Sometimes you can make it look easy, right? But at the end of the day, these are all professionals. No team should really be considered bad per se. But I'll put it this way. I expected to go into this game with much more confidence than what I have right now. And I do love the Cowboys, and a lot of the guys on the team are some of my favorite players in the NFL all around. Based on what we've seen, I just don't have a lot of confidence right now. Now, I do expect them to win, but it's more so like, I guess I shouldn't say expect. Based on what I have seen and from what I have read, it's not hard for me to imagine a scenario where they do win. It's not hard for me to imagine them winning, right? But like I said, I just don't have a lot of confidence in that right now. But listening to a lot of what they've said this week, and not just about, what the guys are saying about professionalism and accountability and all that. If you listen to some of the sound from today, it sounds like there's been a little bit of an evolution of that thought process where some of the guys are kind of pointing out like, well, yes, all of that stuff is mental and emotional, but what we want it to translate to is a type of work that actually ends up showing up in results on the field. So at the end of the day, regardless of how frustrated they might seem with what they think other teammates are or are not doing in their own time in order to get better, at the end of the day, what they want is on-field results. At the end of the day, what they're working for is on-field results. That's what they're thinking about. That's what they're going into these meetings talking about. And so I do believe that they've worked at it and that we'll see evidence of that on the field, right? So I'm not necessarily expecting them to just be the same old, but just, is 3 days enough time for them to make the adjustments and the changes and the improvements that they need to make in order to mitigate some of the numbers that we just talked about? So let's see some more comments. Willie, your pessimism is amusing at this point. And I know this isn't a pessimistic comment, but it's just the tone of it. The defense better tackle and make plays. I agree. I just imagine that being said in the tone like, this defense better tackle and make some plays. Like, of course, what else would they do? So that's the part about it that just seems pessimistic. I'm like, oh, goodness. Please win this game. Cowboys, win this game, if for no other reason but for the sake of Willie's mindset. He is not having a good time over here. Big Flock says, sit Malik and Dono, start Wanye and Bell, and put Micah back at his true position. Mike McCarthy did comment on Bell. So they asked him about Marquise Bell and Kalen Carson and their progress towards getting on the field. And he said that Kalen Carson is closer than Marquise Bell. So, but both of them are going to be game time decisions. So we'll see what happens in terms of playing time in that regard. But once again, like a lot of the things that y'all are throwing out in the comments, I'm not mad at any of it. If the Cowboys were already clicking on all cylinders, I might be like, why would y'all want to see them make that type of change? But at this point, I'm just like, look, that sounds like something that could work. If they were to try it, I would not be mad. But I'm not making those kinds of predictions. I'm just not comfortable with it at this point. Chris Johnson says, I'm at work and miss my girl whole show. You mean your girl, like the homie? Like we're homies now? Is that what you're saying? Okay. So if y'all have any more comments, any more questions, anything else that y'all want to look up before I sign off, now is the time to go ahead and put that in the chat. Now, while y'all are thinking about your final comments, I'm gonna throw something at y'all while there's a few of y'all who are active in the comments. Because here's my thing, right? If you've been watching me for a while, you know historically, I talk a lot. I talk about a lot more than just the Cowboys, right? And there are some other topics that I do want to keep talking about. So I haven't done any videos, for example, on the Colorado Buffaloes so far this season. And if you follow me on Twitter, you know that the Colorado Buffaloes are a team that I follow. So I just want to know from y'all, especially since the group of y'all who is in the comments right now, y'all tend to be the most active. How would y'all feel about me going live talking about those things or doing some standalone videos talking about those things? And by those things, I mean the things that I've talked about in the past. So the WNBA playoffs are coming up. College football, the Colorado Buffaloes are doing well, or at least they did well this past weekend. Travis Hunter is a big story and his possible pursuit of the Heisman. And also, we've got some legal issues going on. There are so many lawsuits right now between the NCAA and student athletes and just things that are going on with the conference shakeups. The collegiate athletic landscape is truly, truly interesting. And then there's other stuff like so there should be news about Dak Prescott's situation coming out soon. Nothing that's going to change the outcome, right? But there was supposed to be the hearing for sanctions against his accuser that was supposed to happen in September, got moved to October. So just things like that. Other things going on in the sports world. Do y'all still want me to make time for those types of things and put them like at the end of lives like this? Should I make them standalone videos? Or y'all not really interested in being live for stuff like that? Let me know what y'all think. And if you're watching this after the fact, you can also let me know what you think in the comments. And I might even make a post about it in the YouTube community. You can tell me there. You can hit me up on Twitter. I just want to know y'all's thoughts because I want to make sure that I'm still making content that resonates with my audience. But in order for me to do that, I need to hear from y'all. Let's see. Drell says, what about Thomas number 30, Wanye? Why isn't he getting on the field? That's a good ass question because he is explosive. He's been doing some things in special teams. And let me just see if I can, how long it'll take me to pull up his snaps. What I don't like doing is making y'all sit and wait forever while I just be like, okay, let me click on these things. I'm going to go to Cowboys. We're going to go to stats. I mean, I'm with you. I do want to see more of Wanye on the field, not just on special teams, because I believe that he has a lot to offer. But all right, Wanye Thomas, so far, he's only had 9 defensive snaps. That's even lower than I thought. Damn. Justice for Wanye. Goodness. What is going on? Yeah, that's bananas. So to answer your question about why, I don't know why. But yeah, that should definitely be the next thing that we try to get to the bottom of. That's crazy. I appreciate you for pointing that out because I knew it was low. I knew it was less than what I and most people want, but I didn't realize it was only 9. Chris Johnson says, "Yeah, I love the Buffs. Good entertainment." Big Flock says, "I'm a sports fan. Me too. Yay, we have something in common. Long as we ain't glazing any rivals." I try not to. Sometimes I cross over into that territory because I am enough of a sports fan to even where when people go from college into the pros, I'm still a fan. So like, if I really get into my bag, you might see some Caleb Williams and Chicago Bears content because I love Caleb Williams. But for the sake of people like you, Big Flock, I won't go too far. I'll try to keep it under control. I'll keep it professional, objective. Um Chris says, plus Dion is an ex-Cowboy, so it's only right to pay him homage. I'm gonna tell you a story about that. So the last game when the Colorado Buffaloes were playing Baylor, I went to Playmakers. So for anyone who's watching it and isn't from the area, Playmakers is a sports bar / lounge that Michael Irvin opened up not far from where I live, actually. And he's there a lot of times. So that's why you hear so many people being like, yeah, I came to Dallas. I came to the Dallas area and I met Michael Irvin. They probably met him there because he's always there. And so at first, so they have a bunch of screens. And they have like 2 really, really big screens. And then they have other screens that are also big, but not as big that are around the room. And so at first on the really, really big screens, the Tennessee game was on. Then when it went off, they put the Colorado game on, which a lot of people were already watching on the not as big screens. And what was interesting to me is that Baylor is essentially right down the street. It's a couple of hours away. But it became obvious that pretty much everybody in that establishment was rooting for the Buffaloes. And the only thing that made sense to point to that made that understandable was the fact that a lot of these people are Cowboys fans. And so they're supporting the Colorado Buffaloes because they support Deion Sanders. So I just thought that was really interesting because normally when I'm watching the Colorado Buffaloes, I'm by myself. That was my first time actually watching the Colorado Buffaloes in a sports bar with other people. And it was just cool to like hear everybody cheering and that comeback. Oh my God. Like I know it's late in terms of how long it's been since that game happened. I did want to do some content on that comeback, but I just didn't have the time. But now that I know y'all want to hear it, I'll definitely make more of an intentional point to make content related to the Colorado Buffaloes, especially when they have games like that. The ending of that game was just, man, Shador deserves all the praise and all the acknowledgement that he's getting right now, especially considering how hard the media tried so hard to drag the Sanders name through the mud at the beginning of the season. And just, Shador and Deion and Shiloh, all of them, they've stood tall through every single bit of it. And so that was another reason why I truly, truly enjoyed watching them have a comeback like that and watching the way the game ended. It was just, if you didn't watch the game, definitely find somewhere to watch the highlights because that was such a fun game to watch. And the ending was literally breathtaking. Clement says, I don't have a problem with you talking about the Colorado football team. The WNBA playoffs have already started, and the New York Liberty and Las Vegas Aces have already advanced to the semifinals. I know, Clement. I've just been busy doing this. And I think another reason why I've spent a lot of time doing this is because also now that I'm on Girls Talk, Boys Talk, I didn't want to use the word pressure, but it is pressure. I feel a lot of pressure to stay on top of the Cowboys anyway. So a lot of times it does just feel easier for me to come on here and make Cowboys content. It feels like just a natural progression of what I'm studying anyway. But yeah, that is part of the reason why I mentioned that because it felt like I blinked and we were already at this point in the WNBA playoffs. And of course, their series are shorter, so that might be why it feels that way. But I'm just like, okay, if I do want to cover the remainder of the WNBA season, now would be the time for me to get on it. So I've been keeping up with it. I just haven't been incorporating it into this. And I've been trying to consider people's feedback. Like, there have been some people who didn't like the call outs and shout outs at the beginning, then wanted to get to Cowboys quicker. So I'm just like, okay, let me try that flow and see how it goes. But then what happens is we get to a point like this where we're like an hour and a half into the stream and I'm tired and I don't want to talk about nothing else. I want to go to bed. I want to wash my face and go to bed. Big Flock says him getting more burn as a kick returner over safety is diabolical. It is. I'm not happy about it. Justice for Wanye. I need to put that on a shirt. And no problem with legal sports news. Legal sports news is fun. Chris says, and our safety room is playing like trash too. Hey, y'all said it, not me. They get ready for Central Florida this Saturday. Central Florida likes to run the ball, which is a problem for the Buffalo's defense who can't stop the run. Ugh, yikes. You're not wrong about that. Yes, best of 3 series. Yeah, that's what makes the WNBA playoffs go by so fast. That best of 3, especially with like the way they do the seeding, because they still do the seeding where it's like a high seed versus a low seed, and then on top of that, it's best of 3. So yeah, it's like 2 games, and it's like, all right, who's next? So yeah, I definitely got to get on it because otherwise it's about to be over. But long weekend, so maybe I'll have a little bit more time to get into stuff like that. And honestly, that like this stream almost did not happen. But I was just like, okay, it's a short week for the Cowboys. Let me just grind through it, get this done, and then I'll have a long weekend. So now that I know y'all are cool with it and y'all are my most active viewers, I will figure out a format for these lives or for my pre-recorded content that can accommodate all the things that I like to talk about and that apparently you all also like to talk about. And I also just need to practice in general. I don't know if y'all notice, but like y'all probably do. I have been stumbling over my words a lot. And I think part of it has to do with the fact that, like I said, I think I might be allergic to Frisco. So some of it is just me being distracted by just me wanting to like cough or sniffle sometimes. And I don't want to do it. And so I end up stumbling over my words. Other parts of it, I think just for some reason, I've become more nervous lately. And I don't know why I'm sharing this with y'all, but I am. So just in general, I just want to practice making content, speaking in front of the camera, and kind of get back to my old, much smoother self. And also find a good nasal spray because this whole stopped up sound, it doesn't work for me. It's not the vibe that I'm going for. But anyway, on that note, I do appreciate y'all for joining in. Hopefully y'all appreciated the insights from Next Gen Stats along with my commentary, and that can guide our conversation on Twitter as I was about to say as we're all watching the game together, because normally I am watching the game and tweeting about it with y'all, but actually this Thursday, I'm going to be at Echo Lounge with Law Nation and probably some other people, and we're going to be talking about the game from there. So I don't know exactly what the format of the broadcast is going to be. So I don't want to say that we're going to be doing during game commentary, but I won't be at home tweeting like I normally am. I'm going to be at Echo Lounge with Law Nation. So there might be some pregame stuff. There might be some postgame stuff. There might be some during game stuff, halftime, whatever. But if you want to find out, keep your notifications turned on. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. And that way, when I figure out what we're doing, y'all will be the first to know. Chris, I'm glad you can't tell that I'm nervous because I don't feel nervous, but I'm just like, why the fuck am I stumbling over my words? And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's also the fact that I've been trying to stop myself from cussing. Maybe you just helped me figure it out. Because before I got monetized, I didn't care because it didn't fucking matter because they weren't going to take my video down. But now I'm just like, how far can I go with it before I actually put my video in jeopardy of not having ads run on it, you know? And then same thing with doing Girls Talk, Boys Talk. I cannot go on that show and just cuss like I do sometimes. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe I need to practice not cussing a little bit more and my speech will be a little bit more fluid. We figured it out. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you, Chris, for helping me get to the bottom of that. Chris said, how do we know when you're going live? I just get like it be like, oh, she's live. Turn your notifications on. So for anyone watching this, there are a few things that I need you to do. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn the notifications on, because I'm still not on a regular schedule because I still have to work for a living. So turn your notifications on, and you should get something that pops up at the top of your phone that tells you when I've planned a video and when that video is actually happening. Or if I do something pre-recorded, it'll also tell you when I post something new. And then as a bonus, fourth thing that I would like you to do, share this video and or my channel with someone who you think would like this type of content. So like, subscribe, share, turn the notifications on. But yeah, Chris, turn your notifications on. Also follow me on Twitter. Usually when I'm going live, I will share the link to the live on Twitter anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour before I do go live. So that's the best way to know. All right. So on that note, it is 1:22 in the morning where I am. I should have been in bed, but I wanted to do this with you guys. So thank y'all for making it fun. But it's time for me to get to bed. I'll be on Girls Talk, Boys Talk tomorrow. I believe the show is happening at 2:00. So if you don't tune in live, definitely make sure you check out Dallas Cowboys YouTube and catch the replay. And then, if you are in town, come through the Echo Lounge on Thursday. If you're not in town, watch my YouTube and look for the live for whatever we end up doing on Thursday. But on that note, I'm Jazz Monet. I'm going to bed. This has been another special episode of Bitches Love Sports, and I'm out.